This week on the Orange Box podcast, we talk about my Switch 2 pre-order experience, a possible PlayStation remaster on the way, Respawn canceling games, and more. All of this tonight, but first, on to that beautiful bean intro. Welcome to the place where PC and console gaming talk combine. This is the Orange Box Podcast, episode 82. I am your host, the man who has gaming AD. Ooh, another game over there. Nathan, also known as the Frozen Gamer 87. And joining me, as always, the man who added 5 more games to his backlog while I was talking, scratch that, 10 more games, Justin, better known as I'm Zaracon. How you doing today? How's your week been?
It's been pretty, it got better. There were a few things that were but things improved. So I sort of forgot to mention this last week, but I remembered afterwards, especially as the end of the week started, or end of the week came. We had quite a few, we knew that these were coming, but we had a lot of special reports coming from my job, and they really came at the worst time because we already were getting slammed, and we had a couple days where people had taken off ahead of time and stuff. So being down by some people and then just, having all these reports wasn't a really good time. But fortunately that's all over with. I think though there might be a few more special reports coming in, but those are just smaller things that will be easier to take care of when they come. And actually this past week, or at least the first half of this week, has been really slow. So it's nice having that change of pace, just to sort of catch our breaths after everything we just went through. Mm-hmm. But things, of course, will start picking back up as things progress. So over the weekend, I initially wanted to build this and sort of make it a surprise. I mean, it was a surprise still, but a friend of mine who's been gaming on his Steam Deck and using that primarily as sort of the PC, I went and got him a pre-built from Micro Center. I stopped by and picked one up, and I upgraded it because there were a few things that, one was a preference type thing, would have been nice to have, but the other one was just because the cooling in that PC is just the major red flag, just because it uses a stock AMD cooler. So I went ahead, bought just like a tower, a dual fan tower cooler, installed that on there, and so I'm just like, all right, cool, this is good. I also put in an extra terabyte of storage for him, so nice. That's all set now. Just gotta give that to him, but yeah, that was. It felt kind of nice being able to just work with some more hardware, because I've had a bit of an itch to just play around and tinker with a PC, but I'm like, my computer, I already put some stuff in there right now, and I'm not ready yet to actually build my main gaming PC, so I still just had an itch to tinker around with some stuff. So I was like, this is fun, I'll do this. I enjoyed that, but that was good. So a while ago I played at least I did a demo for a game called Mandragora, and the game came out last week, and because I was a backer of the game, I got my code, or at least I was trying to get my code for the game. They said that there were emails going out for the code and stuff, and I was like, alright, cool, great, I'm waiting for it. It never came. I waited a couple of days. I said, there are a lot of people getting their codes, that's fine, I can wait. Nothing happened. A whole week passed, and I thought, maybe I should message the people and say, hey, what's going on here? So I sent them a message, and they were pretty swift to respond, and then they said, you should have gotten one already, and if for some reason you can't find your email that you received, here's just a direct link to it. And it turns out that the link they gave me for the demo was going to be the same link for the actual code, so because I received it, that's why technically I didn't get a new one. And unfortunately, because I thought it was just going to be, the link was just for the demo, I had deleted the email. So because they sent me the new link, I got that, and I was able to get the game from there. I'm glad though that I sort of waited to get that, or at least there was the delay with getting the code, because apparently upon launch there were some issues or about the game possibly what's the best way to phrase this? I guess there was just sort of like some spyware in a sense, like they were like looking at your computer and stuff, and so because I was surprised, I didn't learn about this until I was going to the Steam page to see like how, if it was Steam Deck verified or not, and then I saw that it had mixed ratings, and I thought, whoa, what's going on here? Why is the game getting mixed ratings? And I saw in the reviews people were not happy about like there was just, you know, different types of tracking and stuff on there. And then the devs, fortunately, they responded and said, yeah, we should not have done this at all, and so they removed it in an update, and so that's better, at least, so that they don't have that in there anymore. So yeah, I mean, I missed that fiasco, but I've got the game now, and so whenever I start playing it, that'll be good. And then I guess one last thing is yesterday my sister and her kids came by, and so spent some time with them. And I mean, I'll talk about some stuff with the gaming stuff in the section, but I just had a good time with them. They enjoyed spending some time with me, and yeah, that's essentially everything.
Cool. Well, let's see here. What has happened in my week? It's like by the time we get to Wednesday, I can never remember all the stuff that's happened. Trying to think of anything like significant. I mean, unfortunately, my oldest has strep throat, so that sucks for him especially. I don't know if any of us will catch it. I'm hoping not, but it's hard to say one way or the other. I've never had it before, but that doesn't mean anything one way or the other, so we'll see. I guess one thing I can mention is that I got my laptop all set up for all of the recording and stuff, so I'll be able to, I mean, not only do I have everything I need for the recording right now, but that way it's also set up for whenever I'm traveling in the future. I'll already be good to go on that. So yeah, that's what I'm recording from the laptop tonight, and that way I can do all the editing and not be short missing stuff. Because like last week when I edited, I did all the main editing on the laptop, but I didn't have any of my music on my laptop, which means I couldn't add that to it. There's a couple other things I was just missing, so I had to I did like the majority of the editing on the laptop, all the audio stuff in terms of cutting out sniffles and whatnot. But then when it came to actually putting the whole thing together, I had to get the video rendered on my laptop, transferred over to my desktop, then add all the music, then render it again so that I could upload it. And it's just like, I'd rather just render it one time and not have to do it a bunch of times. So that ended up being more of a hassle than I thought it would be, but now I should have everything set up to where I don't have to worry about that. So yeah, but I'm trying to think of what else has happened. I mean, you know, led music at church on Sunday, doing it again this week. Still need to finish picking out songs, but I picked out a few at least. Gosh, there's something I'm forgetting about, and I know it. It's nothing, you know, as big. Like my son getting strep throat was the, you know, big, like, more dramatic thing, and even that was nowhere near as dramatic as my other son last week having the whatchamacallit. But yeah, I don't know. There's probably not anything else. If I think of anything else, I will be sure to mention it. But otherwise, it's been fairly uneventful. Just, you know, some gaming and normal stuff. So, but yeah. So, what have you been playing this week?
So I'm just gonna get these first few out of the way. Played some. No footage for any of these, but I've got. Played some more Tasty Planets. I got all of the silver medals for that. I've gotten most of the gold medals. I think I have 4 or 5 left to get. So I've got pretty much all the achievements. I just need to get those last few gold medals, and then also eat like 40,000 more objects. But considering the fact that I've already eaten 60,000, it shouldn't be too hard to get the rest of those objects done. So that's all I've been doing with that. So while my niece and nephew were here, they said they wanted to play the Mario game again, and by that they mean Super Smash Brothers. Unfortunately, I didn't have my Switch set up, so I thought about it. I was like, you know what? How about we pull out the GameCube? And so
nice.
Played some Melee on there. They didn't seem to mind the fact that there were far few characters available, especially since I hadn't played it that much, and I had only locked, I think, maybe 2 characters. But they enjoyed that, and it reminded me that I should probably pick up another GameCube controller because I only had 2, and so it's just like, yeah, if they want to play with me, then people have to like switch around and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But that was good. But then they wanted to play the farm game, and by that I mean Stardew Valley. So we played that for a while, and at one point I was wondering why we were broke or near broke, and I didn't realize that my nephew, he went to the saloon and just bought a whole bunch of beer. And I realized, oh no.
So your niece
Aiden.
buying all the ice cream, and then your nephew buying all the beer.
And I was like, oh no, Aiden, no. And so I just said, here, let me just get you away from here. And then my niece was wondering why people weren't happy with her, or why they looked a little upset with her, because she wanted to be friends with people and she wants to give them gifts. But then I realized that she had been giving people acorns and stones, and I said, no, you have to give them stuff that they like. So, yeah, and so trying to balance between helping one and the other at the same time was just, it was fun, but, yeah, they definitely enjoyed themselves, though, playing that. But one game that I started yesterday was Elder Scrolls Online, and this is something that the guy who I was talking about before, who I got the PC for, he wanted to play this with me just because he thought this is a game that we could play, since he didn't have there weren't too many cross-play games between console and PC, and this was one game that we could play together. So I started that up with him. It's kind of like, well, I guess you could say it's Elder Scrolls Lite, because while there are a lot of a lot of mechanics and stuff that you get from a typical Elder Scrolls game, although specifically I guess you could say Skyrim, it is still an MMO, so there are things that I would say are missing, like the fact that you can only loot specific enemies that are highlighted. You can't just loot any particular enemy, which is kind of sad, because there was one quest we were playing where I had to make a choice if I wanted to save a character or let the character die, and I thought, well, this character has proven to be a very bad person from everything that I've seen. So I said, I think I'm just going to put this character out of their misery, instead of just letting them slowly die. I'm just gonna mercy kill you and then just see what you have. I see you have a sword on you, it looks pretty nice, let me take it. And then I realize I can't loot this character, they're not giving me the option. So I was like, there are things missing here. But I mean, it's pretty decent. I mean, we spent some time, we did some missions together, and I it's not a game that I would play by myself, but I think if I'm playing with a buddy or something like that, it's a game that I would be willing to play, just something to do with friends or something like that. And I primarily I was okay with playing this game is because, unlike with other MMOs, you don't have to pay a monthly subscription, which is one of the reasons I was like, I'm willing to play this, is because I don't have to spend money every month just to play the game. So yeah, it was pretty good. But mainly what I've been playing has been Clear Obscure Expedition 3030. And my goodness, this game is so good. Now, I do have 2 clips that I sent. One is from the Steam Deck, and the other one is from my main PC. And only because you asked did I play it on the Steam Deck. And I'm gonna admit, I was surprised by the performance. It actually gets 45 frames per second on the Steam Deck. Unfortunately, because of the recording, it actually was only able to get up to 30. But when I was playing it regularly while I wasn't recording, it was getting up to 45. So I was surprised on that end of it. It was performing better. However, it just doesn't look that great. I mean, and unfortunately, it seems like a lot of the graphics settings are actually blocked. Like, you can't even change anything. They're like they're missing in the menu. So tinkering around with it is very limited. It's really mostly just adjusting whether you want to have TSR for upscaling or XCSS for upscaling, and then just changing that. But other than that, it's limited. But if you're playing it on desktop, though, it just looks amazing. It's very good. And one of the reasons why this game is just great is because the characters are so well done, and the story so far has been amazing. Because when we first talked about the game, I think last year, because there were, I think it was shown as an Xbox trailer or something like that.
Right.
I said, hey, this game looks interesting. It's a turn-based RPG, something we don't really get. It has Souls-like aesthetics. I said, this is pretty good. I'm gonna give it a shot. And when it was coming up close to the release date, I said, I don't know, maybe I'll get it, maybe I won't. But there was a deal on Green Man Gaming. I said, I'm gonna go ahead and get it. And I do not regret that decision, because the prologue of this game, the story is just so... The story's great. I mean, the characters... There wasn't a single character that I didn't like in the prologue, and that's including the NPCs, because each character, they're contributing to the overall part, or the main part of the story, and you understand every aspect of them, what's going on with the world building, and it's just so well done that it's really emotional by the time you get to the end of the prologue. And I would say even right after the end of the prologue, when where the adventure begins, it's just a huge what? Like, what is going on here? It's just so good. And the combat is also great as well, because it's, of course, turn-based, like I said, but it has, quick time elements where you can enhance your attacks, and you can also either dodge attacks, or you can block and parry them completely, which means that you could essentially go through an entire battle without taking any damage at all. Nice. If you know how to, like, time your blocks and your dodges. So in that sense, it makes it very interesting, trying to actually get things done right. And also just, like, the depth of the mechanics as well, because while you do have the one character who's sort of like a mage, her abilities are, like, every time she uses a skill, you get a counter, and depending on the element used, it affects the other skills that she can use. And so it's like, you have to think about, okay, I want to use this skill to enhance this skill, and maybe if I sacrifice 2 of the counters, I can do something else entirely. So it offers a whole lot of customization and just, like, thought planning. So it's very there's a lot of depth there. And I mean, so far, it's just been fun. And I actually started the game over again, because I heard there was a secret fight in the prologue that you could do. And I said, well, I haven't gotten too far in the game. I will go ahead and do that. And I also realized that there were several sort of like side quests that I missed when I was playing it the first time around. And I realized, I did not even know that. And it made sense. It made more sense with things, because when you get to the end of or at least near the end of the prologue, or at least the first part of the prologue, there are characters you see in a cutscene, and, like, at first you think they're just random characters, but if you had actually talked to them during the earlier part of the game, you have seen them and realize, oh, that's that character I talked to, and that's, that's the character I was doing the thing for, and who I helped out with this or that. And so I realized, playing it over again made me appreciate the prologue even more, just because of things that I missed the first time around. But I am glad I did miss that optional fight, because I barely survived it when I actually did fight when I actually did do it. I mean, it's not that it was necessarily hard, but I was still trying to get the timing of dodging and blocking down. That it was difficult. And I will say that it's easier to dodge an attack than it is to parry, just because I think the timing is a little bit different. And unlike with, say, Dark Souls, where you have to sort of try to get it a little early, it seems like you have to parry a little later after the attack lands. So it is easier to dodge, though. Like, I think there's a bit more of a grace period into whether you actually get hit or not. But with blocking and parrying, it's a bit harder to time that. But I am just enjoying this game so far, and as of right now, I mean, things could change as I play some more, but as of now, I would be willing to say that this is my game of the year. And I would even say this is how much I enjoy this game so far. I highly doubt it'll take a miracle for Metroid Prime to beat this game for me.
Wow.
As game of the year. Like, Metroid Prime 4 would have to do something significant, just because this game is just incredible. Also, I didn't even mention the music. The music is just, from the time you start the game at the main menu, the music is just, oh, it's so good. But yeah, that's essentially everything I have to say about that game. It's good. And that's everything that I've played this week.
All right. Well, first of all, one thing I want to mention is that from what I remember seeing in some videos about optimizing this game for Steam Deck, if you put a certain command into the launch options, then you can get it to recognize the Steam Deck as a desktop, and then you have more options for visuals. So that I can't remember what it was. You'd have to look it up, but if you don't find it ahead of time, I'll try to remember to look it up for you, because I saw it in some video about that. So then at least that gives you more options to work with than you get otherwise. But yeah, I mean, between what you talked about with this and just seeing your footage, I'm like, man, I do want to play this game. I mean, I wanted to play it anyway. Like, I thought it looked amazing already, but the main thing that was making me say I shouldn't is, number one, because of the fact that I literally have 3 turn-based RPGs that I'm in the middle of, all of which are Atlas RPGs, and they're all excellent. But then also the fact that I'm, just in the middle of several other games, and I'm like, but I mean, watching this, I'm just, man, it does look great. I do want to play it. I know I'm not going to buy it right now, because I just don't think I'd really be able to keep focused on it enough, because I've just been so all over the place with games lately, and I want to be able to, like, when I get into this game, fully dive in deep and just enjoy every second of it. But knowing that it does do, 45 on the Steam Deck is really good. Of course, now that I have the laptop, more likely than not, if I was going to play it portable, I would just play it on the laptop, unless I was, like, in the car, for example, because I know, we'll be traveling to Wyoming this summer, to visit my in-laws and stay there for a couple weeks. So when that time comes up, then we'll be I probably would not pull out the laptop, because I think it would just get a little too hot having that on my lap in the car when I'm not driving. So, but who knows? We'll see where I'm at with everything. I mean, at that point, I'll have the Switch 2, so there's a fair chance that during the times that I get to play games, it'll just be playing the Switch 2. Anyway, either way, yeah, the game looks amazing. I definitely want to play it. Mostly, like, I think one of the things is, apart from the fact that it, has that great stylish turn-based combat and the dodging and parrying on top of everything else, there's also the fact that, you said that the soundtrack is amazing. I've heard that from multiple other people as well, including one of the guys in the Married to the Games Discord, who, like, I really trust his judgment when it comes to soundtracks. Not that I don't trust yours, but I know he and I have very similar taste, because he's, a huge fan of like the soundtracks of Xenoblade and Octopath and things like that. And every time he tells me it has a great soundtrack, I know that it's going to be something that I'll enjoy as well. So yeah, everyone's been saying great things about this game, and if I wasn't in the middle of so many other games, I would probably have grabbed it already. In fact, probably if I hadn't grabbed Oblivion Remastered, I probably would have grabbed this one. So, but that being said, I'll go into games I've been playing. So I'll start off first of all with Oblivion Remastered, and I didn't play a ton of it, but it's one of the games I played more of the games I played. So this one was kind of interesting because initially when I was trying to play it, I think Saturday afternoon, after I had done some other stuff I needed to do, on my desktop, every time I would try booting it up, I would just get a black screen with music playing in the background. And it seems like it's something wrong with the full screen for some reason. Maybe it doesn't like HDR. I don't know. But it was getting really, really frustrating. And so I basically wasn't able to play it for a bit, and I couldn't find any like fixes online. I tried various things, updating my graphics driver and so on and so forth, and all the various things I tried weren't really fixing it. Ultimately, I got it to just I unplugged my main monitor so that it would boot up on my secondary monitor, and then from there I just changed it so that it would go to borderless instead of full screen. And then when I plugged back in my regular monitor, it was fine. I don't know if that's been fixed since, or if the most recent graphics driver has fixed the problem. No idea. But I did end up playing more after that. Some on my desktop and some on my laptop. Mostly right now I've been working through the battle arena. And I think I've gotten through like the first 4 fights or something, but I got to a point where the last fight I did was a little bit too hard for me to actually get through it at my level, and I ran out of healing items and stuff, so I just decided that I would probably go do some other stuff, including, main quests and whatnot, before I come back to the battle arena and then try again. But yes. Oh, and the person my character looks like, I don't know the actor's name, but he was the main actor in a movie called Children of Men, which was out a number of years ago. And I forgot to look up what his actual name is, but anyway. If you look that up and you look at my character, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. So anyway, during the time that I was not able to get Oblivion to work properly, I decided to play some more Returnal. Now, the thing about Returnal that is unfortunate is that even though, like when I was playing last week, it was like I was making good progress in terms of like I was having a really good run, staying alive well and everything. And since then, every time I've tried doing a run, I just have not done very well. Like I've had a couple that were decent, but I've never even gotten close to getting back to the boss room. And I mean, thankfully the game still, like runs great and everything. I was doing it between, actually I think I was just doing it on my desktop this time around. Still getting anywhere from 70 to 100 frames per second, depending on the area and what all there is going on, number of monsters, things like that. But I mean, still a great game. I just had more problems than not, but it's kind of similar to how things were for me in Hades when I, first played that. So probably as I get more upgrades and that sort of thing, I'll have an easier time. And it's not like a game I'm focused on. It was more just, okay, I kind of felt like playing it because I was enjoying myself when I was playing on my laptop, and since it, runs great on both my desktop and my laptop, it was just a good filler game. But then I did end up grabbing something on Steam that I'd just basically been waiting for a sale on, and that was the Somnium Files Nirvana Initiative, so the second game that, I had bought on the Switch a little while ago and had not gotten super far because of 30 frames with drops was a little hard to deal with after doing a locked 90 for the first game. And of course, on the Steam Deck, runs at a locked 90 frames per second. And I didn't play super far. I think I got maybe... I don't think I got quite as far as I did on the Switch version. But I think more than anything, it was just kind of I wasn't like... I wasn't wanting to play that kind of game as much at the moment. Like, I kind of lost the momentum I had before. If I had been playing it right after I had finished the previous one, I probably would have maintained that momentum and would have just breezed through it. But because of the fact that I kind of was playing more action kind of games and everything, I definitely lost that momentum. But I'll probably come back to it occasionally. Of course, the other thing is that because this game is so story heavy, I need to be in a position where I can just pay close attention to the story and not like have something on in the background to watch or listen to. So yeah, the footage that's playing here is just from the first sync thing that you do in the game. So it's not really spoiling much of anything. It's super early, very out of context. Like, I haven't really learned much of anything about the story yet at this point. But I did end up playing some Diablo 4 with my wife. I ran it on my laptop this time around because I hadn't yet tested it there. And, of course, it runs great on the laptop. With all the settings maxed out, ray tracing turned off, of course. I'm getting 120 to 150 frames per second on average. That was while doing co-op. She was playing it on the Steam Deck and I was playing it on the laptop. And so we just played some more of the campaign and did that for a bit. Good stuff. Still fun, slowly working our way through. I think right now we're still in Act 3, I believe. Maybe Act 4, probably still Act 3. But yeah, we're just kind of slowly working our way through that. And, yeah, not much else to say about that. Now, before I get into one of the games that kind of surprised me a bit more, I'm going to talk some about Dark Souls 2, because that is really where I've spent the bulk of my time this week, since I just got back into it. I will already say I did not play any Bloodborne this week, so I'll just get that out of the way. But, Dark Souls 2, which I think is going to kind of be my main game for a bit until I'm done with it. I have beaten 7 bosses this week. So I did the Dragon Riders first, which is basically just you have the original Dragon Rider fight that you had early on in Dark Souls 2, except now you have 2 of them. One of them being stronger and the other one not quite as strong. I think this took me 2 or 3 tries. It wasn't overly difficult. It was definitely harder with 2 of them than it was with just 1. And the arena was not quite as easy to maneuver around as the other one was, but yeah, I mean, it wasn't overly challenging for the most part. I mean, I did end up just I did summon someone. I think I can't remember if I did for both times or just the first time I attempted it, but moving on, I fought the Looking Glass Knight, which unfortunately I did not cut out, or I accidentally cut out the very beginning of the fight, but it wasn't like very much of it. I think this one only took me 1 try, if I remember correctly. It might have been 2, but I'm pretty sure it was just 1, and I did this one without any summons, but wasn't an overly difficult fight. I definitely got close to dying a couple times for sure, but I think overall I didn't have too much trouble with him. And yeah, so did him. Then I beat the Demon of Song, which I did die to the first time because I just wasn't being very smart and didn't make the right efforts to dodge his attacks. Even though I had some issues with it the first time, the second time I had 0 issues whatsoever. My Zweihander is fully maxed out at this point, so I have been maining that for much of the time. It's basically like Zweihander or the club are my two main ones, although I still haven't fully upgraded my club. Um, but yeah, so Demon of Song, not a very difficult fight. It's doing lots of damage. Um, then I fought Velstadt, the Royal Aegis. I believe I beat it on my first try, but I did have two summons helping me out, so not an overly difficult fight with him being a bit distracted. Um, one thing is so the areas leading up to this guy, it was very much a situation where I had a ton of uh, enemies that were just constantly annoying in this area, and getting to the boss was way harder than the boss himself. And it got to a point where it's like, okay, I would lose my souls right outside his door, and at the end of it, I had like 57,000 souls, and I was just I wasn't sure if I was actually going to be able to maintain it, but I didn't really want to have to go back through all those enemies again. So I decided, screw it, I'm just going to go through the door and see what I can do, see if I can beat him. And thankfully, I was able to beat him without too much difficulty. Beat him on my first try, I believe. And so I was able to maintain all those souls. But yeah, like, none of the bosses in this game, I think, have been quite as difficult. Now, granted, I think I've used summons more in this one than I've used in the other Dark Souls games. But even still, I feel like in general, these bosses just haven't been quite as difficult as the ones in both Dark Souls 1 and Dark Souls 3. Granted, I have not gotten to any of the DLC bosses, which everyone has said that basically Scholar of the First Sin ruined Dark Souls 2.
Oh no.
So we'll see what happens there. How true that is. I will say, as an in general thing with Dark Souls 2, with the time I put in now, I can definitely say that I like this game a lot more than a lot of people gave it credit for. Like, I've heard for years that it was horrible, that it was not worth it, and I wanted to give it a try, especially because you got it for me for Christmas, and so it was just like, I've been wanting to try it anyway. I might as well go ahead and give it a try. And once I got past my initial hurdles, I ended up actually really enjoying it. And granted, I'm still a ways away from the end, but discounting whatever it is I'm going to encounter with Scholar of the First Sin, what I've experienced so far has been positive for the most part. I will say that leveling up in this game is way easier. I am at, I think, under 30 hours right now, and I'm at level 138. So it's that's significantly higher than before. And granted, I'm also making sure that I cash my souls in as early as possible. The fact that enemies don't respawn after a certain point certainly helps with not dying quite as often, but yeah. So anyway, getting back to the other bosses I fought, there was the Guardian Dragon. Now this one was the fight itself was really not difficult. I got through my first try, didn't have any problems with it, but the enemies leading up to it. So there's this area in I think it's Aldia's Keep, I believe, is the area that leads up to this boss. And when you are going through this area, there's various points. I mean, you have to like light certain torches in order to ultimately get to the end of it. And each time you light a torch, an invader shows up. The invaders were annoying. But then there's also like this person who's locked behind a fog wall. And if you pull a switch, then it will free them. Now, I didn't look up what happens if you free this person. I just figured, I'm going to free them. No big deal one way or the other. So I free them, and it turns out that after you free them, they frequently become an invader. And so the
Oh, no.
invader was waiting right outside the boss door for the guardian dragon. And so I'd get right up near the guardian dragon's door, and then this stupid mage would one-shot me half the time. And so I was just getting really pissed off. And it got to a point where, because I had to keep dealing with all the enemies before as well. And it got to a point where I had 78,000 souls waiting outside the door. Or actually, I think it was probably like 74,000, and then minus that annoying invader. And so I finally was able to figure out that if I went in before this guy showed up, right as he was spawning in, went behind where he would be standing, then I could backstab him right as he fully spawned in, and then it made it a lot easier to take him down. And the numerous times that I faced him, because it's been like 5 times, in general, I've basically been able to just backstab him and or just deal a lot of damage, and I figured out well enough how to avoid his attacks to deal with him more easily. But yeah. So, that all being said, going back to the Guardian Dragon, not a very difficult fight. It was probably the easiest dragon I've faced in any of these games. And beat it my first try. Moved on from there. So then the next area I went to, I don't have any footage recorded here, but there's the Ancient Dragon. And this is an optional boss fight. You do not have to fight the boss. You can just go up to them, talk to them, and then they'll give you the item you need in order to do the rest of this stuff for later on. But you can fight him. I just decided, since I didn't have to fight him, that I wouldn't. But the area leading up to him, there's a whole bunch of these knights. And first you have like the big tall knights that are very similar to the ones you have in I can't even remember the name of the area, but it's like that area right before you fight the first dragon rider, and then before you go up into the tower to fight Ornstein. And those big knights, like, you have a handful of those ones you have to fight. If you fight them and everything, you don't run away from them, then all the other dragon knight guys, they'll just ignore you. They will not attack you. They'll even like bow to you out of respect and all of that. And it's like, oh, okay, that's nice. It's a nice change of pace. I go through this area, I'm not having to deal with these guys, because there's like 20 of them leading up to the Ancient Dragon. And I think that they're basically supposed to be guardians of the dragon. But if you try running away from the big knights, then those other guys will come and attack you. And or if you accidentally hit them, then of course they'll attack you. But thankfully it's not like you hit them once and then from there on out they'll always attack you, or you run away once and then from there on out they'll always attack you. No, it's just the one time, and then once you're dead, you respawn, you come through. As long as you attack the big knights and leave the other guys alone, they will leave you alone and you're fine. So anyway, get up to the Ancient Dragon, decide that I'm just going to leave him be. I may choose to fight him later on, but I just haven't quite decided, because there's no achievement tied to it. And because really the only achievement is an achievement that you get by either killing him or just talking to him, which is you get the certain item from him that allows you to access these giant realms where you basically go into the past and you fight giants. So then the next bosses really that I faced were the Throne Defender and Throne Watcher. And this is one, I think it took me probably 4 or 5 tries. Thankfully, getting to this boss fight is not bad at all, because it's basically just after you defeat Velstadt, you get access to the King's Ring, which you need in order to open certain doors. And there's only like 3 doors, but one of them that you go through. It's basically just a pathway, straight shot to the Throne Watcher and the Throne Defender. And once you get there, you just fight them. You don't have any enemies in between, so if you die, it's not really a big deal. So I went in, took me several tries to beat him. I did use summons just because I decided to use summons. And, I mean, I probably could have beat him without, but, like, at this point, I just don't care that much. It's not that big of a deal to me. Like, there's so many bosses in this game, and I still beat them. So it is what it is. But beat them, and then since I did the bosses kind of out of order, the last boss I beat in one of these going into the past memory things was the Giant Lord. And I actually don't have any footage of that because I didn't think to start recording it until after I was already done with the fight, and it's like, oh well, whatever, no biggie. So yeah, that was it for Dark Souls 2. The one game that I played that surprised me this week, I bought on a whim, mostly because of the fact that I wanted something to play with my kids that wasn't just Minecraft, because they're obsessed with Minecraft right now, and I just don't like it. It's just not my kind of game. I'm glad that they enjoy it, and if they hadn't been interested in this particular game that I grabbed, then I probably would just play it with them, and because it's like, I know that they care about that they enjoy playing with me, but I just don't like Minecraft. But what I did end up enjoying quite a bit is Minecraft Dungeons. So Minecraft Dungeons is essentially Diablo Light with Minecraft characters in Minecraft environments, and it's cool. I like it. Basically, the biggest issue I had with this was initially just the setup. It does have up to 4 players local co-op. I installed it on my laptop and then plugged it into the TV in our front bedroom, in our guest room. I did that rather than a living room TV just because of the fact that I knew I was going to have to do some of the controllers wired rather than wireless, and it was just going to be much simpler to have one that was, where we could sit up next to it. But the biggest issue I had initially was really just getting all the controllers functioning properly. And that, more than anything, was a combination of needing to have Steam input and then also realizing how it was set up, because whichever controller you start the game with, that is the player 1 controller by default. And so in order to add an additional person, you have to click in on the left stick. I kept trying to click in on the left stick on this controller, and it just wasn't doing anything. I thought, okay, so I tried a different controller. Still wasn't doing anything. It kept giving me the same problem. And then I eventually figured out, oh, it's because this one's already set as player 1, and that's the reason why it's not working. So we had my PS4 controller, my PS5 controller, my Series X controller, and the Switch Pro controller. The 4 of those, and we were all able to play together, and it took a little bit to figure out a couple things, especially because one of the things we didn't realize initially is that the players 1 through 4 aren't necessarily based on where things show up on the screen. It's the hearts are color coded to the characters, because like each character has an outline that is color coded so that you know who's who. And so we had player 3 was in the top right corner or top left corner. Player 4 was in the top right corner. Player 1 was in the bottom left, and player 2 was in the bottom right. And so it's like, it took me a while. Like, I kept looking at player 2, and I'd see player 2 was, low on health, and so I was thinking that was me because, I was player 4, and I kept trying to heal myself, and it wasn't working. And it's like, why is this not working? And eventually then I figured out, oh, it's the hearts are color coded with the characters, and the positions are not as obvious as they should be. So anyway, once we got that all figured out, and then started to figure out some of the basic mechanics in terms of how it works on this game versus what I'm used to, which is Diablo. And it's not dramatically different, but once I figured out those differences, we were able to do a lot better, and we're able to get through both the tutorial level and then the first in-game level beyond that. So, took a bit longer than I would have liked. Unfortunately, because my TV is only 60 hertz in the front bedroom, I couldn't do it as high performance as I wanted to, because when I had the frame rate, when I had VSync turned off, it was getting it like 280 frames per second with max settings. So yeah, it runs really well on my laptop, which is great. I got to that, so I'm running it at 1080p because that's the resolution of my TV in there. But yeah, it runs really great with 4 players, and it's just teaching the kids the kind of mechanics for these loot-based action RPGs, and, you know, teaching them about, okay, you know, this equipment has better ratings, you want to wear this even if it doesn't look as cool, and so on and so forth. And then, you know, different drops are color-coded with each character, so, like, certain characters can pick up certain things and other characters can't, and so on and so forth. But yeah, Minecraft Legends, or Dungeons, not Legends. I can't remember what Legends is exactly, how it is. I know it's not the same thing. My nephews keep explaining it to me, and I just can't remember what Legends actually is. I need to look into it. But Dungeons is cool. I like it. It is a game that I will enjoy playing with my kids because I enjoy Diablo and they love Minecraft, and so it's like we both get something we want. I'm not forced to play Minecraft, and you know, we get something that performs wonderfully, has split screen. I mean, well, it's not split screen, but it is 4-player co-op. And unlike the Lego games, if someone gets off screen from everybody else, it just warps them to everybody else's location. So, or at least unlike the earlier Lego games. But yeah, no split screen. That's perfectly fine. It worked great, and we had fun. I'll definitely be playing more of this with my kids. I'm looking forward to it. But that's everything.
Okay. So while we're on that topic with Minecraft Dungeons, question I have is, have you tried playing this on the Steam Deck yet?
I have not.
Okay.
I probably should install it, but part of the reason why I installed it on the laptop is because I figured, like, especially when we are at my in-laws' place, this would be something we could play together there, you know, if I take the laptop. And more so, it was also because of the fact that then I could connect it to the TV in the front room and we didn't have to play it on the desktop. And I don't think I want to play this on my own, because while I'm sure it would be fun, like, I think the game is fun enough to where I could probably enjoy myself, I got this game so I can play with the kids, and so that's really the only way I want to play it.
Okay. And I mean, I know it didn't seem to be anything, but is there any sort of rhyme or reason as to why certain players are in different corners as opposed to a more traditional player ones in top left?
I have
player
no
two?
idea. Honestly, I haven't looked into it. It basically seems to just be reverse of what it is. Otherwise, it may be in that case that, although we had initially selected our characters in the one order when we were messing around with the settings or trying to get everything sorted out, it may have been a situation where that was just the order we happened to grab them in. Like, my daughter, you know, is player 3, and she started, you know, with her character first, and then so on and so forth from there. That may have been what happened, but I don't know. We'll mess around with it and see if there's any difference there.
Okay. And then going back to Dark Souls 2, I actually have several questions about this. So, first one is about the Looking Glass Knight. Now, I've heard about this boss fight, and I was curious, did you play this online or offline?
I'm not sure. I think it was probably offline, but okay. I couldn't tell you for sure, because usually when I start up the game, I'll start it online. But then I will um, if like I have to turn off the Steam Deck for a second, then it'll disconnect me from the internet. So
Okay.
I couldn't tell you for sure whether I was still online at this point or if I was offline.
Okay, yeah. I was mainly just curious because I heard that if you play it online, then you're fighting actually against actual players during that fight.
Huh.
And so I was just
Interesting.
curious if like how that went, if that's what happened.
Yeah, I didn't have any players show up during the fight. I mean, like, at one point he spawns a knight out of his shield,
Yeah.
but it didn't appear to be an online player. It just looked like it was someone else. I mean, I guess it's possible it was, but the coloring didn't indicate to me that it was like a regular invader. It was just someone in black.
Okay. Yeah, because I mean, I just heard about that fight and saying like, yeah, if you play online, then the knights will be players instead of just computer characters. So I was like, that's kind of scary right now, having to deal with a boss fight and an actual player. So I was just like curious about how that went there. But okay, that's interesting to know. And so yeah, I think I'll just stick with, if I get to that point, I think I'll just be offline because I don't want to have to worry about that at that point.
Yeah, I mean, I only had one come out, and I mean, like the first time, it looks like it was the second time that I beat, not the first time, but the first time I didn't really have any issue, or I should say, the first time I died, but I died to the boss, not to the other person, and then the second time I didn't have any problems.
Okay. And then, regarding the ancient dragon. So I was curious though. You said that there weren't any achievements tied to it. And then if you talk to the dragon, he gives you an item. Is there any sort of drop that he gets if you fight him that would count, or something that would be needed for, say, a weapon or spell or anything like that for those types of achievements?
I don't think so. I think all you get from him is the a giant soul, which is if it's one of 5 that you can get, which makes it so that when you fight Vendrick, he's a lot. I mean, he takes the normal amount of damage and doesn't deal as much damage. So, because of that, I may end up just going ahead and doing that fight. But more than anything, I just didn't really want to deal with all of the other guys coming after me if I decided to attack the dragon.
Yeah,
Because my guess is more likely
fair.
than not, if I did attack him and I didn't beat him the first try, then when I came back after respawning, I probably would have to face all of them on the way.
And I'm curious though to know if you fought the giant knights enough times, if after they stop spawning, would the regular knights still just treat you the same way as if you had killed them, or if they would say, well, because you didn't fight the dragons technically this time around, we're gonna fight you now when you approach.
Yeah, I mean, I think it only seemed to be an issue when I specifically like ran away from those guys that those other guys would attack me, but I don't know.
And regarding the mage that you freed earlier, did the game at least have the decency to give you something from behind that fog wall for your troubles of freeing him? Or is it just like, you freed me,
honestly, I don't remember.
and I'm now just going to make your game experience miserable?
The game warned me a bit about freeing him, or at least, online messages warned me, but I just, it's like, I'll just see what happens. And I mean, at least he gives me, I get humanity when I kill him each time, or not humanity, but the human effigies.
And then I guess one last thing, since, I mean, you've talked about this some, but I guess, and you did say you still have a ways to go before you finish, but so far, based on your experience, how would you rate this next to Dark Souls 1 and 3? And I guess also, basing this as far as the percentage-wise of when you played these games initially, like say if you played Dark Souls 2, if you're only about 40% through with the game, how would that compare with 40% in Dark Souls 1 and Dark Souls 3?
Like, I honestly couldn't tell you. I know that I have, I think, 15 bosses total left, including 2 of which are optional. Well, technically more than 2, because of the fact that the DLC stuff is all technically optional, but like, I definitely would say it's my least favorite of the Dark Souls games, but there are some things I like better about this one. I would say, like, visually, I think this one is definitely way better looking than Dark Souls 1. Um, I think, I mean, it doesn't look as good as Dark Souls 3, but it looks better than Dark Souls 1. But it, like if I had to say how I feel about it, in comparison to the two, I mean, Dark Souls 1 still takes the top for me. Dark Souls 3, I think, honestly, I probably just need to replay it one of these days. Or at the very least, complete all the DLC and see if I feel any different about it, because there are things I absolutely love about Dark Souls 3, and overall, my words about that game were very, very positive, but there was just enough times where I got frustrated that I did not enjoy myself as much as I had hoped I would, even though I still think it's a really great game. I don't think there's any way that Dark Souls 3 or Dark Souls 2 will ever match 1, and probably as an overall game would not match 3 either. But I think it's a good game. It's just, there are definitely things that are different about it that you have to get used to, and that's really what it comes down to, is there's just differences. I think the one thing that I honestly do kind of like better about this one is the fact that enemies stop respawning after a while, because there's never been a time where I've really felt like I needed to grind, apart from occasionally wanting to get like certain items, like pieces of armor or whatever. But otherwise, it's just like, okay, I'm actually, it's kind of nice having a point where enemies stop respawning in an area, and then I can just, if I am struggling to get to the boss, then I don't have to deal with so many of these enemies. But and I will say also, the Zweihander in this game handles more similarly to Dark Souls 1 Zweihander, which I like better than Dark Souls 3 Zweihander. Oh, that reminds me. So there's a couple other things that I forgot to mention. Okay, so first of all, there was one point where, just for giggles, as I was walking up towards the ancient dragon, there's various of these smaller red dragons that I have to face, and I decided I'm gonna dual wield giant weapons. So I had, in one hand I had Zweihander, in the other hand I had the Berserker sword. For some reason I'm forgetting the name of it. But yeah,
Sword?
so great sword, thank you. And yes, so I did that for a little bit. I attempted it on a couple of boss fights too, and it didn't quite work well enough in my favor, because I mean, I'm technically strong enough to wield both, but it drains through my stamina very fast, so I ultimately have not stuck with that. I will say, though, I like the Greatsword way better in this game than I liked it in Dark Souls 3 from what I used, when I used it in Dark Souls 3, so Greatsword has become a new favorite of mine. I mean, I still say Zweihander is my baby, my favorite weapon in these games, but Greatsword has definitely gotten up there for Dark Souls 2 anyway. The other thing, so that when you are in Aldia's Keep, there's this pit where you have basically a pool of the acid stuff that degrades your whatever gear you're wearing, your weapons, armor, etc. And so I had figured, I probably should take off all my armor and stuff to run through this, because the stuff doesn't really deal damage to your character, it just deals damage to armor.
Mm-hmm.
When I took off my armor, I'm a girl. I'm like, what?
What?
Did I accidentally make my character a girl this time around? Like, when I had to restart the game, and it was like, oh well, I guess whatever. I guess I must have done that. And it's like, it doesn't really affect anything, but I was positive I had created a male character, because I always create a male character. That's just how I typically play, unless I don't have a choice, and then I'm fine with playing as a girl. But so I'm doing this for a while, and I was like, that explains why my run has been a little weird, because it's like I'm going like this when I'm running as a girl. And those of you who aren't watching won't see what I'm talking about, but obviously Justin's looking at you going like this when you're running. And so like I have no idea what's going on. I look into it, I'm like, okay, well, I know you can reassign your stats. You can rebuild your stats by talking to the old ladies at the things betwixt. But I talk to them, and the only option I see is to reassign my stats. So then I look into it and find out that's what happened. So there is this coffin in the area near the things betwixt that's like guarded by two ogres. And I had gone in there before. I had no idea what happened. I mean, what it did. I just, went in, and then it said something about the nature of your being has changed. I had no idea what it was talking about. I was like, I'm always wearing armor anyway. So it's like, I had no idea what had happened. And I found out that will change you from male to female or vice versa. So I had been a female for, I don't even know how long, probably like a good 10, 15 hours of the game at least, and just had no idea. And so I have gone back, and I went and changed back. But it was just funny to me that happened without me even realizing it. And because the main thing is like I'm seeing, okay, you can get into the coffin. I'm thinking of how it is in Dark Souls 1. When you get into the coffin, it transports you to a different area, to the Grave Lord, to get the Grave Lord's Covenant and all that. And so I just figured it would be something like that would take me to a new area, and it didn't do that, and I had no idea what it did. It was just like, okay, whatever, I'll move on. But yeah, so gosh, there's something else I was gonna say. What was it? I don't know. I guess it wasn't all that important. If I think of it, I'll mention it later. But yeah, that's all I really have to say at this point.
Okay, yeah, that's all. Those were all the questions that I had on my end. But good stuff, though. Good stuff.
Cool. All right. Well, let's get into the news, and there's really not much of anything. So one of the things which I actually was originally going to talk about in my beginning part, and I just completely forgot until now because it's on the list, and that was my experience with pre-ordering the Switch 2. So this is not going to be a lengthy thing here. I'll just kind of say it. So we, got off the call about 10:45 last week, and I just kind of hung out, was waiting till 11 o'clock so that I could try and see if I could try pre-ordering through Best Buy or whatever. 11 o'clock rolls around, and I load up Best Buy. No dice. It's not showing up. Available for pre-order. Of course, their page is having issues as well, but it's just not showing up. So I try Walmart as well, and the page just literally won't load. It just keeps giving me basically an error message every time I try to load the page. I try Target. The page shows up, and I try adding it to my cart, and it's like there was an error, something to that effect. Kept trying. No luck. Finally got to probably about 11:25 or so, something like that, and I was just like, you know what? If I don't get it, it's really not that big of a deal. I can try tomorrow, see what happens. So I just went to bed, and I woke up in the morning, and I decided first thing to look and see, tried Walmart. The second I tried it, the page popped up. I added it to my cart, And I was able to check out. Pretty simple. So I ordered that, and then I ordered the Switch 2 Pro controller as well separately. And then thirdly, I ordered the Satisfy grip for the Switch 2 because I knew I was going to need that to have available. And this one, thankfully, the newer ones actually are dockable as well, so that's great. I don't have to take it off every time I want to dock the thing. I mean, they started doing that with the most recent version for the regular Switch and Switch OLED, but I never bothered to get that because I just didn't really see the point in buying a grip again. So I am getting one day one for the new Switch. And yeah, not anything particularly dramatic. You know, it wasn't like a harrowing experience or anything. I just kind of gave up after a while because I didn't want to be up super late. I was already up later than I wanted to be. And yeah. Did you hear any horror stories from anyone or?
Not necessarily. In fact, based on just what I've seen on Discord, it seems like getting a Switch 2 has been easier than getting the first Switch. From what I've seen people. I mean, some people had to wait a while or like had to try it again and stuff like that, but it seems like it was easier this time around, which is very good, I would say. Not to have, easier for people trying to get one instead of, like every time you make an attempt, oh, it's sold out, or you go to the page, it's sold out for extended periods of time. Like people have to be able to go back, even if it's not that same day, maybe a day or two, people have been able to go back and try again, and they were able to find one available for purchase. And I did hear that like Walmart has been one of the easier sites to get one from, interestingly enough. But yeah, I mean, I'm glad for people who have been able to get one. I'm glad that it seems like there's been more stock available. I'm glad, Nintendo did say they want to try to make things a whole lot easier, and that's partially why they initially delayed releasing the Switch. I think, back in like January or something like that. They were saying like, yeah, we're gonna delay like releasing the Switch or something like that just because it was actually think even earlier than that. Like, I think it was like back in 2024. They were going to make a delay because they want to make sure there's stuff stock available. So it does seem like they were, doing what they said. So that's definitely good there.
Yeah, one of the things that seemed to be an across the board change this time around is that these sites have some sort of added steps to the process so that it wouldn't be so easy for bots to just grab them all right away. In fact, that it basically made it, I think in most cases, that you had to like have a login for the site, and you had to like verify something, like basically do tests that lock bots out. And of course, they also limited it to one per customer. So that definitely made the experience better. It was just, of course, it still took a while, and some people, everyone I've talked to that really tried to do it that night and actually stuck it out were able to get one after a while. And then like one guy I know just went to GameStop the next day, and there was like a big long line, and he waited and then was able to pre-order. But yeah, I'm glad I went the route I did. I'm glad I didn't stay up late trying to get it, and that I just waited until the morning, because it was super easy to get in the morning. No difficulty whatsoever. It's like I woke up at 5:30, remembered, oh yeah, I should probably check and see if I can get this, and then literally 4 minutes later I had ordered it. It was a piece of cake. The unfortunate thing though is that one of the other guys I was talking to, I showed him, I said, hey, check the app, check the Walmart app. They show as in stock for me. Like, they don't have them in store, but if you scroll down to the shipping section, you can pre-order. And he was checking, even though he had it set to shipping only, it wasn't showing up for him at all, which was just weird. I don't really know why that was the case. The only thing I can guess is maybe it's because of the fact that being in Missouri, I'm closer to Walmart headquarters, which is in Arkansas, I think. I always forget if it's Arkansas or Kansas, but either way, it's like Walmart's main HQ is just like 45 minutes away. So maybe they just have more stock, and so I don't know. But either way, I have it set to ship. I don't have to go wait in line. I don't have to do a midnight launch, nothing like that. I'll just get mine the day of release, God willing, and then I'll be able to enjoy it. I mean, the only game I have coming with it is the digital version of Mario Kart World. Otherwise, I'm just going to be playing my Switch 1 games, and I'm hoping that at least some of them will have performance improvements. Because, frankly, one of the biggest reasons why I gave up on getting like a PS5 was because there was no performance improvements for games. I remember very specifically. So, back when the PS5 was harder to find, I had gotten an email from PlayStation saying, hey, you have the opportunity to buy one directly through us now. And I was very seriously considering it. I almost pulled the trigger. And then and then I was thinking, okay, like I have Persona 5 Royal. I haven't finished it yet. Maybe I'll get it, play it on PS5, and I should be able to get 60 frames per second, and then that'll make it, feel a little bit better. And then, also be able to play other PS5 exclusives and that sort of thing. And then I found out Persona 5 Royal is still stuck at 30 frames per second on the PS5. And that in and of itself was just like, okay, I'm done with this. I can't keep doing this. I'm sick and tired of these new consoles. They give you more power, but they don't allow you to take advantage of it unless you pay them extra. And even then, sometimes you don't get anything. I mean, granted, this one, they weren't going to charge me extra, but they weren't going to even give me the option to pay extra to get improved performance. And, when I buy a game on PC, if I get better hardware, by default, I'm going to get better performance. Usually better visuals, too. I can adjust the settings, and I can get better everything across the board without spending extra to do so. It's like, yes, I bought the hardware, of course. But the point is that I'm only having to buy the hardware, and then all of my games perform better, rather than being like, some games perform better because they get a patch. Some games don't ever get a patch and don't perform better, and others, they charge you to get better performance. On top of the money that you already spent on the new hardware. It's like, I'm honestly at a point where if it wasn't for, number one, the fact that my kids are using the Switch a bunch, and so I want to have my own that I can use, and the fact that I still really like Nintendo's first party stuff, I would probably just be done with consoles, because I'm tired of that nonsense. I don't think I'm ever going to buy a PlayStation again. I'm not saying that it won't ever happen, and it's not impossible that maybe someday someone could give me a newer PlayStation or whatever, but as far as it is up to me, it is going to be really hard to convince me that any of these consoles are worth it anymore. And the Switch 2, I'm honestly mostly just getting it because of the fact that I can still play my Switch games that I have. I'm hoping that maybe at least some of them will give me a free performance patch. Not expecting it a whole lot, and if I don't get it, I'll just deal with it. But yeah, okay. Anyway, I'm done. All right, so we do have some other potential news. I mean, it's not news. It's kind of just more of it's a mixture of news and hoPIUM. But PlayStation has, PlayStation periodically will pull stuff out of their PlayStation Plus catalog. They are, in May, going to be pulling Infamous Second Son, along with a handful of other games, out of their PlayStation Plus Extra catalog. Now, Infamous Second Son, as I've said many times before, I think is an amazing game. It is... Sucker Punch is just peak when it comes to game development. And Infamous Second Son was like a great... I mean, like, it still looks great, even as an early PS4 title. It plays great, despite being 30 frames per second. and just the gameplay across the board is great. It used the DualShock 4 in great ways. As Sucker Punch does, they're really good at utilizing what the controllers can do. But now it's being pulled out of that catalog. Now, the reason why this is a big deal, this isn't me outraging about it, because it's like, okay, it sucks for people who maybe played it that way. I've owned the game since I got my PS4, since before I got my PS4, back in 2015. But what this does bring up is the hoPIUM that maybe this means a remaster's on the way. And since this game is over 10 years old, this game actually deserves a remaster, especially having one that will actually run, at least on PlayStation, at 60 frames per second. But theoretically, if it's coming to PlayStation, if they're doing a remaster on PlayStation, it's going to be on PC as well. And it should have unlocked frame rates. So 120 frames per second for infamous Second Son. No longer having it locked to the PS4 only, or PS4 and PS5 without any performance improvements whatsoever. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, this is definitely unusual because, like you said, games do get removed from PlayStation Plus. Same thing that happens with Game Pass. However, the fact that this is a first-party title is very unusual. Like, this is something that, to my knowledge, has never happened before. So there has to be a reason as to why this is happening. And like you said, it would make sense if they're doing this because of the fact that they're going to be remastering this game, or maybe even remaking it, which would be great, as you said, because there would be the better improvements, getting some better visuals, even though you said it still looks great, but the better performance, oh, that's going to be awesome. And I mean, also thinking about it, we're kind of overdue for a PlayStation game on PC anyway, aren't we? Because what was the last game that was that Until Dawn? I feel
no, we've had several. We actually, even though it's not anything either one of us want, Last of Us Part 2 Remastered just came out.
Oh gosh, yeah.
And we had Spider-Man 2 earlier this year.
Okay, yeah. Okay, yeah. Sorry. It's just been dry on my end.
Right. Well, real quick, I do want to point out, the same thing happened with Horizon Zero Dawn last year. It was pulled from PlayStation Plus, and I just looked it up. May 2nd, 2024, Horizon Zero Dawn is getting removed from PlayStation Plus. And there was, at that time, a rumor of a remaster, and sure enough, it happened. And of course, that remaster looks really good, even though it's something that I didn't want to spend money on. hoPIUM is in full effect right now. Now they just need to do that with Bloodborne, but I don't think Bloodborne was ever on their PlayStation Plus thing. So it's not too late. It's still 2025. It's still the 10-year anniversary of Bloodborne. There's still opportunities. We could get a native port so that I don't have to play an emulated version to enjoy this game. Come on, Sony. Do it. Do it, you cowards.
Yeah. I mean, I do believe that. I think there definitely is a strong chance of Second Son getting a remaster. Like, I really feel strongly that this could happen. Because, as you said, it happened with Horizon. And for one thing, this isn't Bloodborne, which means that it has a greater chance of happening. But, again, it's also been a long time since this game came out. It's definitely one of those games where, because of that, it's not we're going to wait a year or so before we put these games on PC. Yeah, this is a game that has been out for a long time, so it definitely makes way more sense, or it makes a lot of sense. I'm not saying that, they can't put games that just came out on PC, but it definitely, in their perspective, it makes more sense to do that. And I mean, even if they just remaster the game, because it's, a PS4 game, it's not like they're going to have to revamp a whole lot or do too many changes to, make it look right. I mean, of course, there are going to be things like, changing whatever architecture and translating it to PC or whatnot. But it shouldn't be, extremely difficult to do it, as opposed to, like, maybe doing a complete remake if they were doing that. If it's just a remaster, then yeah, then it'll be easier, I suppose. But I do believe that this is definitely a good sign. Now, that being said, I would still like them to put the other Infamous games on PC. But if this is what they're just doing for right now, I'll take it. Like, I don't have a problem with that. I can wait, or maybe even try going down ye old road of emulation. But I mean, that's the PS3 emulator. That's
the problem is that
yeah,
emulation of those games is not good. Like
yep.
I mean, granted, I haven't tried emulating them since I upgraded, but when I tried to emulate them 2-3 years ago, the PS3 versions, I wasn't even getting a solid 60. In fact, the frame rate was all over the place. It was awful. Like, it was, honestly, I think it may have been worse emulated than it was just playing it on the PS3.
Oof.
Because, I mean, that cell architecture just makes it really tricky. Like, some games, particularly games that are like remasters of PS2 games, run great. You can get that solid 60 and everything, but when it comes to the native PS3 games, the vast majority of them do not run well. Now,
Okay.
granted, with my newer CPU, they would probably run a whole lot better, because I mean those games are heavily CPU. I mean, when you're emulating, it's already heavily CPU bottlenecked, and it's even more so when you're doing games that are, PS3.
But yeah. But yeah, I guess overall, though, I do believe that this is something that is likely. We'll just have to wait and see. But if I had to make a prediction, I would say maybe whatever Sony's next showcase, or at least major showcase, because know that I think they're supposed to be doing one for, I think, what's that game called? Borderlands 4. They have one.
That was earlier today.
Never mind, it already happened. But at least whatever their next major one is, where they showcase a lot of different games, I have a feeling that's going to be when they showcase Infamous Second Son Remastered. If not,
Sure hope so.
if not, then I would say latest is going to be like early summer when they say something, like maybe July or something. That's all I got for that.
Yeah, I'm hoping we get some more just announcements for PC ports in general. Like, I would happily take various PS4 games remastered for PC. Obviously we talked about the Gravity Rush games. It would be fantastic. Second Son would be fantastic. The Nathan Drake collection for Uncharted would be fantastic. Of course, with like Second Son, that runs on the same engine that they used for Ghost of Tsushima. And so it's like, we already know that their engine works well on PC because the Ghost of Tsushima port is phenomenal. I mean, it is an absolutely fantastic port. Speaking of which, hopefully this weekend I'm going to be playing Legends with somebody, because I have someone who's wanting to do it anyway, and then my wife is doing some things with the moms for the co-op, the homeschool co-op. So it's like, hey, opportunity, go ahead and enjoy it, even though I haven't played that game since last year, so I'm going to be a bit rusty, but still, it'll be fun. But anyway, so yeah, I'm going to say that I think that there is a very strong likelihood this is going to happen. Right now, of course, I'm not like anxiously awaiting, because who knows when it would be announced, but when it gets announced, it's going to be an instant pre-order for me. I mean, granted, I'll wait for the Green Man Gaming or whatever discount so I can get it 20% off and get the collector's edition, because Second Son was so good, and like, I already know how much I love this game, and more likely than not, when they do the remaster, it will probably include First Light, which was the standalone DLC that was separate. And First Light was really good too. That one you played as the character Fetch, who is let's see here. I'm trying to think of what's a conduit. Who's a conduit like Delson was, and like Cole McGrath in the first two Infamous games, and she had neon powers, which is where Delson gets his neon powers from. Is from her. She's also played by Laura Bailey, who's fantastic as it is. You have Troy Baker and Laura Bailey in a game yet again, and also the guy who plays Delson's brother, who's also commonly in games with Troy Baker, who plays Delson, and Laura Bailey, is the husband of Laura Bailey. So it's like it's just interesting dynamics there across the board. But yeah, if they put both. I mean, even if they did them separately, I don't think they would do them separately. I think they're going to include it all together. I think that it just makes sense for them to do that, unless they're going to do it at a lower rate for each individually. But yeah, I mean, like, so good. These games are so good. I want it to happen. I'm hoping it happens. I will put my money down day one because I love these Infamous games. Of course, obviously, I would love to see 1 and 2 get a remaster. Even if they didn't change the visuals at all, and all they did was just make them playable on PC and PS5, I would be a happy man. I'd be perfectly happy with that. Assuming that they actually made it so that the frame rate wasn't stuck at 30 and lower. As long as they fix the frame rate and, up-res it, whatever, I'm totally fine with that. I would enjoy just being able to play those games at a higher frame rate, probably very easily on the Steam Deck for all three. Theoretically, depending on how much of a visual upgrade they do with, particularly with the first two games. But like Infamous 2 is my favorite. Infamous 1 is my second favorite, and Second Son is my third favorite. And it's not because any of them are bad games. They're all amazing games. It's just that 2 is, in my opinion, it's the best of the three, including its DLC, which is fantastic. 1, I think, has like the best story of the three. And is just a great package overall. And then Second Son, while it's not as good as the other two, it's still phenomenal, and it definitely controls the best and looks the best of the three. So, but yeah, okay, I think that's enough of that. I could go on and on about these games because Sucker Punch has been so great, and the more I see about Ghost of Yotei, the more I am very much very optimistic about what it's going to be. And I don't know if you had a chance to look at those articles that I sent along, but like the explanations that they have about the character, and what they're doing with it and all, really just gave me a lot more confidence that they're truly going to have something that's equally excellent as Ghost of Tsushima was, just with a completely different character, of course, and a different story and all that. But I'm just like, I'm hopeful now. Thankfully, because of the fact that this isn't day one on PC, I'll have time to find out if there's anything that's going to make me cringe to the point of saying I won't support the game. But hopefully, it will just be like, at worst, it'll be the usual suspects, rage baiting about it, and that it really won't have anything that's so objectionable that I don't want to play it and don't want to support it. Sucker Punch will just keep doing their good stuff, and that's what I'm hoping for. Anyway, okay, I'm actually done now. All right, you want to talk about this whole thing with Respawn?
Yeah, so they're well, as a whole, like, this is something that happened by and large, where EA has laid off a good number of employees across the board, for I think about 300 altogether. Respawn has terminated 100 people. However, there were two games that were canceled in order to also for them to focus more on Apex Legends and Star Wars games. One of them, according to Insider Gaming here, was a multiplayer extraction based game that was I believe it said it was for oh gosh, Titanfall, like a multiplayer Titanfall game, and the other one is a game that there's no information about, or at least for the public that there's no information for, and that game has also been canceled. And then here's a quote specifically saying that they went to what was the exact quote here? Respawn said that as we sharpen our focus for the future, we've made the decision to step away from two early stage incubation projects and make some targeted team adjustments across Apex Legends and Star Wars Jedi, referring to like Jedi Fallen Order, Jedi Outcast. No, not Outcast. That's the other game. Jedi Survivor. These decisions aren't easy, and we are deeply grateful to every teammate affected. Their creativity and contributions have helped build Respawn into what it is today. Looking ahead, our commitment to player-first experiences remains unchanged. Innovation has always been at the core of Respawn's identity, and it continues to drive how we build the future, from evolving live experiences to crafting new worlds and stories. And they said they went to not just deliver competitive, innovative seasons, but expand what Apex can be, and regarding Star Wars, investing in what's next for the franchise, exploring bold experiences that push the boundaries of competitive play. Oh no, this is actually referring to Apex here. But for Star Wars, they said they want to keep building new stories and raise the bar again for storytelling and gameplay. And that's essentially everything that we know about this, or at least that's come to light. I have some thoughts on this, obviously, but what are yours for this?
Well, I have to say, first of all, of course, when it comes to the layoffs, it's always unfortunate when that happens. Not really more I can say on that front. I just hope anyone who is being laid off is able to find more work and just go on from there. And hopefully having their work with Respawn on their resume will give them better job opportunities. But that being said, in terms of the focus here with Respawn canceling projects, including this supposed extraction shooter set in the Titanfall universe, so that they can focus on Apex Legends and the Star Wars Jedi series, I gotta say, I actually think it was a smart idea. The extraction shooter genre, like, it can be really popular, but I think that it's one of those things that the ship has already sailed, and it's probably better that they canceled now, especially with the way things are looking for Marathon and just how underwhelmed people are by the game. And realistically, if they were going to do something Titanfall related, it'd just make more sense to do Titanfall 3. And because everyone had so much positive things to say about Titanfall 2. I still haven't played it, but I've heard nothing but good things about Titanfall 2, and it just makes way more sense for them to just make a Titanfall 3 and go from there. Now, in terms of what they're focusing on otherwise, first and foremost, I think it makes perfect sense to put a lot of time more into Apex Legends, because Apex Legends has been going strong for years. It's still really huge, and I mean, yeah, it's not as big as it used to be, but it's still very big. It makes sense to put a lot into that because it's a good money maker for them, despite being a free-to-play game. And the Jedi series, the Star Wars Jedi series, I'm a huge fan of Fallen Order. What I played of Jedi Survivor, I really enjoyed as well. And as long as they don't put de novo into their next Jedi game at launch, hopefully it also will run as well as both of the games do today, versus how Jedi Survivor ran at launch when de novo plagued the game, and until they removed de novo, it was losing about 20 to 30 frames per second from the frame rate. So, I have said before, I thought Jedi Survivor or Jedi Fallen Order was a phenomenal game. Jedi Survivor, what I played, I really enjoyed. I just uh, fell off of it, mostly because it was hard to play it portably, and I just hadn't gotten back to it. But now, of course, I know that it runs well on my laptop, and so whenever I get back to it, I'll probably end up playing it a lot there as well as on my desktop. And I'm just, I think it's a great series, and I think also what I have to say that's positive about this is that they're focusing on both a popular multiplayer game and a popular single player series. And that is something that we see too often, that they focus on one or the other instead of doing both. And I think it's good to stick with things that are successful and not try to chase things that by the time you get to them, it's a bit too late, like what happened with Concord and what's currently happening with Marathon, which may or may not turn itself around. Hopefully, for Bungie's sake, it does turn itself around, but I don't think it's ever going to be as successful as Destiny. And Destiny, even as it is in kind of a weird spot. So, that is everything I have to say.
Okay, yeah, I definitely agree with you about when I heard that this would be an extraction multiplayer game and hearing that was canceled. My thought was good because you can say this about virtually any type of genre, but I just really feel like this genre, I mean, how many extraction shooters are there? But you could argue about that there aren't as many as others. But I feel like it's a saturated genre where it's like, all right, you're going to try to get people to play this game when they can play any other extraction multiplayer game or just a multiplayer shooter in general. You're going to try to focus efforts on that and get people to play it when it's like, well, why? I mean, you've got to do something really good just to carve out your own portion of the pie, because you're competing against already established franchises. Or, I mean, sure, Titanfall is already established, but I mean, it wasn't the type of game was completely different though. I mean, those were single player games too, so like changing the whole style is.
Well, the first one was actually multiplayer only.
Oh, it was. It was okay.
And the second one still had multiplayer. It's just that it had a single player campaign as well.
Okay. Well, I stand corrected then. But also, how long has it been since Titanfall 2, by the way?
I think that was 2014, I want to say. No, no, I'm wrong about that. No, I think that Titanfall 2 was like 2017, I believe.
Okay.
Somewhere around there. It may have been later than that. I can't remember. I'll look it up while you're talking.
8 years then. So yeah, so it's definitely been a while, and trying to, I mean, it's definitely possible to revive an IP and have it do well. I mean, you can definitely look at stuff. 2016. Okay, so 9 years then, because I mean, technically you could say look at Metroid. I mean, Nintendo didn't do anything with Metroid for a long time, then dropped Dread, and that did well, and Prime Remastered became the best-selling Metroid game, or I might have it reversed. It might be Dread that was the best-seller Metroid game, but
I think so.
But to go from like having no games to having 2 games that did really well, it shows that you can pull off that type of success, but it's definitely gonna be difficult to do something like that, especially if it's something people might not have necessarily. It just depends. Like the market, like if you have a newer generation of gamers, they might not care as much as people who played it originally. But it definitely be difficult. But I mean, I just think that axing that as a whole is just the best thing to do. Now, I still am curious though as to what the other game could have been. Like, would that have been a single player game? Would that have been a new IP? would have been something else that they've done before, like in our existing franchise. That would have been interesting to know. But I mean, for one thing, also, I mean, were they doing the what was it? The was Respawn doing that Star Wars? Was it zero? I can't remember what the numbers were, but it was like 016 or something like that, or I can't remember. It was something like that, or 013,
yes,
or
I think,
or 1313.
yeah,
Right?
1313. That was
Yeah.
the one, and I can't remember if that was them or if that was someone else. I don't think it was them.
Okay.
I mean, it may have been EA related, but I don't think it was Respawn.
Okay then. So I was to say, like, if they were going to like revive that, I feel like that would have been a that would have been a shame if they had to can that, because getting that.
Yeah, I can't imagine that they were trying to revive that because, I mean, with as successful as the Star Wars Jedi series has been, it seems like if they had the opportunity to make another single player Star Wars game, they would jump right on it.
True.
Considering, I mean, because it's like Jedi Fallen Order and Jedi Survivor have been immensely successful.
But yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, they're focusing on their strengths, so that's definitely good. I do, if they are going to do something different, I wouldn't be opposed to that. I mean, we do see what happens when companies do get out of their comfort zones. I mean, look at say From Software. They've been doing nothing but Souls-likes, and then they did Armored Core. They brought that back from the brink, and that was something different. And sure, it had some taste of Souls elements in there, but it was still going back to what more or less what they had done before with those games. So, if a company does want to branch out and try something different, I have no problem with that. But I mean, they're focusing on what they've built upon that made them strong. So I won't fault them for sticking with those games.
All right. Good stuff. All right. I do have a topic that I thought would be interesting to discuss. But first, did you have any other news topics you wanted to talk about?
And no, nothing that I've seen pop up.
All right. So this is a question that came up from Married to the Games that they were asking listeners this past week, and I thought it was could be an interesting discussion topic. What would you like to see with the next generation of consoles? And with that, is there anything that would convince you buy one? Excluding the Switch 2, because I know that you'll probably eventually get one of those.
Okay. Well, what would I like to see in the next generation of consoles that would convince me to get one? I mean, this is good. I mean, I don't know if this would technically be cheating, but like if they had, say, near backwards compatibility with previous games. I mean, I know that's something that Xbox has been doing with their stuff, but like if PlayStation did that, that would be great to play, 5, well, I guess technically 6 generations of PlayStation games all in one platform. That would be great. If I think this would be a big one for me, if they had better options for various settings, kind of like PC. If they gave more options for that, like saying like I want to customize, the textures, the shadows, the lighting, the ray tracing, if I could do that, rather than just saying you can either have quality or performance mode, to say I want to do custom instead, and just like adjust this and that, so that way, sure, some stuff might not look that great, so I might not get as many details, but I can, get possibly, just 60 frames per second in most, if not every game. That would be something interesting, and also I mean, I don't really do too much of this, so even though I hate on this a lot, I it wouldn't necessarily impact me that much, but have free online multiplayer. That's actually one of the main things that that kept me from certain consoles. It's one of the reasons why I was a Nintendo fanboy, because like I kept like, you know, I was playing on the Wii, I was like, man, you know, those PlayStation guys and those Xbox guys, they have to pay to play online. Meanwhile, us over on Nintendo, you know, we're on the Wii U. I mean, there are a few of us on the Wii U, but even us on the Wii U, we don't have to pay to play online. So yeah. Yeah. How's it feel? You know, you Xbox people, you PlayStation people have to pay. But yeah, if they made it online multiplayer free again, well, I mean free again for Sony. It's always been paid for Xbox, but if they made that free again, I could consider it. But I mean, I guess essentially those would be the main things that I would like to see, because as a whole, like, exclusives really don't do much for me anymore. I mean, they did back during my fanboy days, but like exclusives don't mean much to me now. Like, even if something's like coming over and it's like exclusive only on PC, I'm like, yeah, it's a game that's only on PC. I mean, I would appreciate it if console gamers could play this game, because, you know, I like it, so I want them to enjoy it too. But like, I don't care if that's exclusive. Oh wow, game's exclusive on PC. Whoop-de stinkin' do. So like, that's my mentality on that. So even if there was like exclusive, like I mean, like, I do remember saying that. Well, I mean, it wasn't necessarily exclusives, but there had to be certain games, or at least a certain number of games on a platform, that I would need to be able to justify purchasing a console. So, you know, just having a certain number of games that I would be interested in playing, which, I mean, technically would mean that games I don't already own on PC, because if so, then it's like, what's the point of buying them over again? But I guess just as far as features go, the ones that I've mentioned would be what would make me consider buying a new console.
All right, well, I can say that in my case, I would definitely agree with everything you said. But the other thing is that I would like for them to, number one, make it so that 60 frames per second is the base standard. No more 30 frames per second, period. If anything, the most I would be willing to give them is if they said 40 frames per second is for quality mode, so that you get better than 30 frames, but you're not stuck at. But you're not. I mean, that you can get better visuals, but not be stuck at 30 frames per second, because the difference between 30 and 40 is just dramatic. Now, I still would say 60 should be the base frame rate target at all times. Even if there's occasional drops, as long as 60 is the base frame rate and they make that their primary focus, I think that would be excellent. But making it possible to have 120 frames per second be their performance mode would be huge, because that's something that they should have done a long time ago. But the problem is that every time developers get this new, more powerful hardware, instead of focusing on performance, they just focus on making games look prettier, adding more visual effects, shadows, ray tracing, so on and so forth. And then we just keep ending up with the same cycle over and over and over, and it's just obnoxious. Beyond that, if I was given a choice, I would probably say, I mean, the other thing that I would really like to see them do is I would like them to stop upcharging people. Or, well, let me back up. I would like for it to be a situation where, with that backwards compatibility, which would preferably be backwards compatibility with everything that you had previously, maybe like saying, okay, you're not going to be able to like play your physical Vita or PSP games, but if you have a digital library, you can play any of your games from PSP and Vita, and then you can play physical games from PS3, PS2, PS1, and of course PS4 and PS5. I think all of that would be good, but I would also like for it to be um, that the system can take that the power advantage that the new system has would by default be enabled for every game,
Mm.
or at the very least that they would patch in things for free to where you can increase the performance for every game. I think realistically it should just be set up to where it's already in there, and at the second that you start up the game on a new, more powerful system, you're automatically able to get better performance like you should be able to, like we get on PC. All of that being said, I don't think there's anything that can make me go back to consoles. Because even if they did all those things, it still wouldn't be as good as having PC. The only thing that it would give me over what PC has is native backwards compatibility. And apart from that, it's like there's really no advantage. They could do all those things, and it would still end up being basically I'm getting all these things already on PC, and I don't have to buy a new plastic box in order to do that. A new plastic box that is weaker than the hardware I already own. Furthermore, because of the fact that even if it's not day and date, every one of their games, with the exception of Nintendo, are coming to PC at some point if they're not here already. There's just no advantage to it anymore. There's no good reason to keep doing that. I would rather spend the money to upgrade my PC at that point with something else, even if it's just adding additional storage, than spend the money on a console that's just going to sit and collect dust. Because I'm not going to keep buying these games multiple times. And I cannot think of any situation, even if they did all those things, which I think would be great, would be pro-consumer, I just cannot think of a single good reason any of those things that would make me go for a console again. I'm just done. Like, Nintendo, I'm just barely willing to get the Switch 2. And it's apart from the fact that the kids use the Switch, and that's a big part of the reason why I'm getting the Switch 2 when I am, really, it's only the Nintendo games that make me want a Switch 2. And even that, like, right now, I don't think there's a single one that's coming to the Switch 2 right away that I'm like, I want to play this day one. Like Metroid Prime 4, yes, of course, I'm looking forward to trying it out, 120 frames per second. I'm looking forward to trying out that mouse mode, seeing if it's any good. And even if it's not, still 120 frames per second is fantastic. I'm super happy about that. But otherwise, like the Donkey Kong game, just not for me because I have that irrational hatred of monkeys. Mario Kart World will be fun, but I'm not like, it's not something I'm excited about. I'm just more like, okay, I'm sure it'll be fun, and I'll play with the kids at the very least, but beyond that, meh. Now, I'm sure there will be more in the future. Yes, I'm looking forward to playing Tears of the Kingdom at 60 frames per second, but I already own Tears of the Kingdom, and, you know, I'm hoping the Xenoblade X is going to have a free patch to 60 frames, and that I'm not going to have to spend extra to get that added frame rate, but I'm past the point of really feeling like there's anything that could convince me to go back to consoles as a normal thing over the advantages I already have on PC and the massive library that I already have on PC. Even if Sony kept made all their games exclusive going forward, And Xbox did the same. I don't think I could get myself to switch to buy a console again. I don't think I care enough for that. It would be really hard to make me care. And I already know that they're not going to make it exclusive because their PC ports have done well. Xbox has been doing PC Day 1 for a long time, and they have zero indication that they're ever going to stop. So, all right, that's everything I got.
Well said. Well said. I definitely agree with that.
All right, do you have any other discussion topics?
Yeah, there's one that I have, and that is in the midst of everything lately that's been remade or remastered. One thing specifically in video games isn't really talked about, and that is, are there any game soundtracks that you would want to be remade or remastered? As far as like, say, they were games from older hardware, or because of that, what was possible was limited, or say it was just something from 8-bit or 16-bit, and they really couldn't really get a full orchestra. You couldn't get a real like guitar or anything like that. Is there anything you would actually like to see remastered or remade?
The only thing I can think of that would probably benefit from that, and this is only if they actually remade the game, is Chrono Trigger. I mean, the soundtrack is still good, even with the 16-bit sound font and all that. But I would love to get it like an official soundtrack remaster for that. And if they did a remake, they probably would. So far, like in general, I found when Square Enix has done remasters of soundtracks, their remasters have been really good, and I've been really, really pleased with the results. Even like Final Fantasy XII: The Zodiac Age is a great example where they re-recorded the whole soundtrack, and I don't think that there was a single song from the re-recording that I felt was better in the original than it was in the new version. And I mean, that's not to say that the original isn't still great, because it is, but I don't feel like there's not a single song where I'm like, okay, this was better in the original version. Like, I look at, for example, Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door. Most of the songs that I've listened to on that soundtrack, from what little I played of the remake, most of the songs I thought were better. But then when it came to the theme for Rogueport, I think that is better on the GameCube version. And thankfully the game does have the option to have all of the original soundtrack. And so that's just what I ended up doing, because especially that one version is just better in the original. But then you have like games, which is not Square Enix, but Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition, where you have the original soundtrack, which is phenomenal, and then you have the new soundtrack that they did for the re-recording of the soundtrack for the Definitive Edition, which is even better. I mean, there's a couple songs that, like, at first I was thinking, man, I think I kind of like the original one better, but the more I listen to them, like, no, it really is. The remake or the remaster for the soundtrack is better than the original, even though the original is still phenomenal. And so, to TLDL that, Chrono Trigger is the one soundtrack I think that could use it. I believe in the Pixel remasters for the Final Fantasy games, they already re-recorded all the soundtracks. From what little I listened to when I tried out Final Fantasy IV remaster, it was re-recorded, and of course that music is just nostalgia filled constantly. But anyway, that's my answer. My lengthy answer, rambling answer.
Yeah, I had a bit of a difficulty trying to like figure this out, because I feel like some games kind of got that, and namely I would say games technically got remastered music. Like, for example, games like for Nintendo, they would have gotten remastered in a technical sense in like say Smash Brothers because there were selective tracks. Because I would say something like, you know, Ocarina of Time, but you know they did have those sort of like the Ocarina of Time medley in I think that was introduced in Brawl, and then they also did other stuff for, you know, in Smash Wii U and Smash Ultimate. But after thinking about it for a while, I realized there's one series that technically hasn't gotten any sort of remaster. I mean, I guess technically also there were a few games in Smash Wii U and Ultimate, but Mega Man is a series that I would really like to see getting an actual full rock, you know, soundtrack. That would be awesome, especially in particular Mega Man 2, but Mega Man X and the Mega Man Zero games. Like those games had awesome soundtracks, and Zero technically kind of got a remaster with the Mythos tracks, and those were good. And because of that, I really wanted all 4 games to just get a full remaster because there were some really great soundtracks. There's some really great songs in those games, and yeah, essentially just getting at least Mega Man 2, getting Mega Man X and the Zero games. Those will be the ones that I would want the most. Just getting that full distorted guitar, you know, getting that full band feel. That would be awesome. And you could really call it. And then you could, you know, try to be weeb-ish and just say, now it's a real rock man soundtrack. But yeah, that's what I've got there.
All right, good stuff. Okay, well, I think that's all we have for topics tonight, so let's get into our recommendations and dissuasions. Why don't you start us off?
All right, so I've got quite a few here. I'll try to get through them as quickly as possible. First one is going to be if you buy a lower-end power spec PC from Micro Center, specifically for AMD, replace the stock cooler. You do, because that's going to really limit your performance in games. It's going to be running hot. So definitely replace the cooler. You know, just getting a cheap, you know, maybe like a $40 air cooler. That's going to do a whole lot better than that simple downdraft stock AMD Wraith Prism cooler that they have in there. Otherwise, just don't buy it. You just like a more higher end, because then they'll, I think, have water cooling or something like that. But otherwise, just replace the cooler is what I gotta say for that. But my main recommendation is gonna be Clear Obscure Expedition 33. As I said before, it's a phenomenal game. It does so much right, you know, visually, with the characters, with just the story, the atmosphere, the combat. It's great, and I definitely recommend it. And I would say if you do get it, there are a couple things that I would recommend, and that is to just first take your time during the prologue. There's a lot that's being done to set up the world building, and you're really doing yourself a disservice if you're just trying to rush through it just to get to the action. I mean, there are a couple, you know, sort of tutorial fights here and there, stuff to like help you get more acclimated to the combat, but just take your time, you know, talk to people, look around, you'll get some stuff here and there that can help you out later on. And you know, it's a good time. And of course, if you want to go after that, you know, that hidden fight, you can do that, but I wouldn't necessarily recommend it, but hey, that's up to you. But just take your time doing that. And I would also say, you know, in that aspect, to try to use the lower level enemies in the starting area of the game once you start chapter 1 to understand the mechanics, so that way, especially with dodging and parrying, because those are going to be the two things you really want to learn. And definitely focus on dodging first and foremost, because that's a whole lot easier than parrying. You have a larger window of opportunity there. So just try to learn those two mechanics. It'll really help you out in the long run, I think, especially, you know, as enemies, you know, their attack patterns differ. They might attack slower, they might attack faster, And so, if you can understand how to do that, it'll make fights a whole lot easier for you. But just as a whole, though, play this game. And even if you don't, I would at least recommend the soundtrack because the music is so good. And I mean, I feel like sometime soon I'll go ahead and just buy the soundtrack off of Steam because it's just good. But yeah, those are my recommendations.
Nice. All right, well, my recommendations. First of all, this is just a general recommendation for any Souls game, and that is pay attention to where you are walking. Because, so yesterday when I was just, I was going back to some earlier areas where I knew I had missed some collectibles, and I hadn't, been following a guide, so I just wanted to make sure. I mean, I was just exploring around a bit more, especially because I'm, well over leveled, so I'm not too concerned about the enemies. But one of the areas I was in, I wasn't paying close enough attention to where I stepped, and I just walked right off a ledge and fell to my death. So yeah, pay attention to where you're walking when you're playing these games. Thankfully, I'm at a point where, like, even if I had lost those souls, it wouldn't have been that big of a deal because I'm so high level that it doesn't make a big difference. But still, like, that could be majorly frustrating if you have cleared most of the enemies out and then you just accidentally fall to your death. Yeah, it sucks. The other recommendation I have, this is especially for parents who have kids who are obsessed with Minecraft. And I know that there are others like myself that are out there like that. Try out Minecraft Dungeons. It is a fun game. It's a great way to help kids learn how to play something that's not just Minecraft. And, at the same time, it's like they're able to do something with a game series that they enjoy. So it automatically draws them in, and then it gives a game type that's more enjoyable for parents at the same time, particularly those of us who game. And so I think it's a fantastic experience, what I played so far, even though it's very little. And I'm sure at times it will get repetitive, but if you're like me and Minecraft is just not your jam, Minecraft Dungeons is likely going to be that. So that is what I have for recommendations. And dissuasions.
Alright, so my first one is going to be, don't forget to turn off Bluetooth on your PC when you aren't using it. So while I was recording the Steam Deck version of Expedition 33, I had plugged in my DualSense controller into the dock and was recording it onto my laptop. However, I heard something coming over from my PC, and I was wondering what's going on. And then I turned around, I saw so many different windows were brought up, and it turns out Bluetooth was on. And even though my DualSense was physically connected to my Steam Deck, it was connecting to my PC through the Bluetooth, and so I was pressing buttons, and I was doing stuff with my PC, and I had to close some stuff and change some settings because I had, reverted some things and changed some things here and there, and so I was like, yeah, let me turn Bluetooth off right now. So definitely don't forget to do that, and because it could mess things up for you. And then second one is, this one's a bit harder as a dissuasion because you did recommend something, but I'm just gonna recommend my dissuasion is going to be, don't play Expedition 33 on the Steam Deck. Now, initially, primarily, I was gonna say don't play it because the game just doesn't look so great. Even though you did mention that there were some settings that you could do that could make it look better, or at least give you more options to make it look better. I think I'm going to say don't play it because of the fact that while it's better than I expected, playing at 45 frames per second is going to make things like dodging and parrying a whole lot harder because you don't have, as many frames to try to get the timing right for dodging and countering. So because of that, and that's a core mechanic of the game, I would say don't play it on the Steam Deck for that reason.
All right, fair enough. I'm assuming when you played at that frame rate that you changed your refresh rate and stuff too to match it.
For the Steam Deck one.
Yeah.
Um,
Because if you had it locked to 45, it would just stay at 90 hertz. But if you have it locked lower, having the refresh rate tied to your frame rate limit will make it more responsive.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think I changed anything when I was playing it, but I can definitely go back and see.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, if you were playing at 45, and if that was at least what you had it locked at, then it probably would. 90 hertz works because when it's equally, it's like a evenly divisible, then it works really well, just fine. Like if you're locking it to 30 frames per second, you have it set 60 hertz, it's gonna feel just as good. In terms of the refresh rate, obviously 30 doesn't feel as good as 60, but when it's evenly divisible, then that's how it typically works. When you, like, if you were to lock it to 40 frames, it would do it to 80 hertz on the OLED.
Okay.
Versus, or like on the regular Steam Deck, if you lock it to 40, then it will do 40 hertz, and it feels a lot better than if you're doing it at 60 hertz when you're doing 40 FPS.
Okay.
Stuff. But anyway, yeah. All right. Well, my dissuasion is going to be in Dark Souls 2. Do not get into that coffin unless you want to change from male to female or vice versa. If you want to do that, by all means, go for it. But if it's not something that you intend to do, don't get in that coffin that's guarded by two ogres. And of course, when you get out of the coffin, you will be greeted by the pursuer. So, at least the first time. Once you defeat him, then he doesn't show up again. But yeah. So
That's
I think I had a different dissuasion as well, but I forgot to write it down, so I don't have it. Yeah, that's it. That's what I got.
All right. Good to know. Good to know.
All right. Well, where can people find you?
They can find me on my channel. I am Xeracon. That's IAMXERACON. So youtube.com/@IamXeracon. No new content. I've just haven't felt like it. I still intend on putting out a new video, but I just haven't felt a strong desire to do it lately. But I still intend on getting it done eventually. But yeah, that's where you can find me.
All right. Well, you can find me on YouTube at the Frozen Gamer 87, which is my gaming channel. Nothing new as of late, and I'm not sure when I'm going to have the next thing up, but it's just been a very busy time of life right now, and having the extra time to work on stuff like that just hasn't happened. So it will be coming. There will be more content at the very least around the time the Switch 2 drops. I am planning on doing my first comparison with that, probably with the two games that I had originally planned to be my last two for the OLED. So that is both Freedom Wars Remastered and Persona 5 Tactica. So I'm hoping to do both of those. Of course, it would be great if they decided to do a patch for either of those games when they come out Switch 2, but I'm expecting there will be no patch, most likely. So, nevertheless, that is the plan for that. I also have a YouTube cooking channel, Not Authentic But Delicious. That's YouTube at NABD Cooking. Nothing recent there, but there's plenty of great recipes on the channel, and there will be more in the future. I just don't know when that's going to happen. Just another one of those things. I have some recipe ideas to record. I just haven't really decided when exactly I'm going to do them. So when I get stuff recorded, I'll probably start working on getting stuff up again. It just hasn't happened lately. Then, of course, we have the YouTube channel for the podcast, where you can watch the video version of the podcast every Friday morning, about 7 a.m. Central Time, typically, as long as there's no issues with technology. And that is where you can not only see our beautiful faces, but you can also see clips from the games we've been playing, as well as stuff we've been talking about from both the news and just trailers that have been released and so on and so forth. And that is also up on Rumble. On YouTube, it's at the Orange Box Podcast. On Rumble, there's no custom URL, but I do put up the episode every week, although I think I may have forgotten to put up last week's. I think I need to check that. I think I forgot to actually do that, so I better take care of that tomorrow. But anyway, so that's everything for that. There's also the Orange Box Pod Clips, which I haven't put anything up on for a while, but that's on both YouTube and Rumble. And that is where there will normally be clips from the various segments of each episode. And when I get back into doing that consistently, then that will be just part of the plan. I believe that is everything. Oh, yes. Audio version of the podcast is up on all major podcast platforms every Friday, usually at midnight Central Time. And that is on Apple Podcasts, YouTube Music, Spotify, Deezer, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and various other podcast platforms that I cannot think of off the top of my head. But that should be everything. So, last chance. Any final thoughts?
No, sir.
All right. Well, I am the Frozen Gamer 87. That is I'm Zaracon. We are the Orange Box Podcast. And until next time, I'm so glad the cheat is not dead. Orange Box Podcast out.